I was staring at the ceiling of my office on a Tuesday afternoon, wondering if it was worth skipping lunch again, when I got a call from the HR intern. "Hey Ben, you forgot your folder in the break room," she said, and I just muttered a quick thanks before walking down to get it. That folder was full of performance reviews I had to submit before the end of the day. Important stuff. But what I found when I picked it up wasn't a missed report or a spilled coffee. It was the beginning of a month that would rip my life apart. I'm Ben Harrow, 37, cybersecurity analyst, living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work for a medium-sized tech company that does contract jobs for hospitals and government agencies. Not exciting, but stable. My wife, Danny, short for Danielle, is 35 and owns a high-end photography studio downtown. We've been married for 6 years, no kids yet. Just us and our dog, Milo. We met at a friend's barbecue, did the usual dating roller coaster, and eventually settled into a nice little house with an even nicer backyard. Our life was fine, comfortable. She did her thing, I did mine. We weren't overly romantic, but we had mutual respect and, I thought, deep trust. I'd never felt the need to check her phone or question her late nights editing photos. If she had a shoot that went until 10 p.m., I assumed it was real. If she said she was having coffee with a client, I believed her. Because that's what you do when you're married, right? That day, though, something weird happened. When I picked up my folder, I noticed a second folder under it. One that wasn't mine. It had my wife's name on it. Now, that wouldn't be strange, except Danny doesn't work here. Ever. My curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Inside were several printed photos, studio shots, all taken in her photography space. But they weren't just headshots or family portraits. They were personal, intimate, and not of her. Of a guy I didn't recognize, shirtless, sitting on the stool she uses for clients. In one shot, he was kissing her neck. In another, she was straddling his lap. My hands were shaking, and I just stood there in that cold office kitchen, with the humming of the fridge in the background, staring at something that absolutely did not belong in my reality. I flipped through the rest, hoping there was some context I was missing. Nope, just more photos of her with him, in various states of closeness, intimacy, and eventually, outright sex. I took the folder, walked back to my office, and closed the door. I didn't move for maybe 20 minutes. Didn't cry, didn't shout. Just sat there, hollowed out. You hear people say they felt like the ground vanished beneath them? For me, it was more like someone had hit the mute button on life. No sound, no clarity, just silence and a white-hot pulse in my ears. I had always thought betrayal would come with yelling, smashed dishes, or a dramatic scene. Instead, it came in a manila folder that someone had left behind like it was nothing. Like my life was disposable. I couldn't think. I couldn't eat. I canceled a meeting by faking a migraine, shoved the folder in my bag, and left. I walked right past my coworker Mark, who asked if I was okay, and I didn't even answer. I just drove. Nowhere in particular. I ended up in a parking lot near a gym I hadn't been to in months. Just sat in the car, staring at the dashboard, gripping the wheel like I was about to race someone. That evening, Danny got home late. I didn't ask where she'd been. I didn't mention the folder. I watched her smile at me, talk about how exhausting her shoot had been, and I just nodded, pretending I cared about whatever excuse she was giving. She kissed me on the cheek and went upstairs to shower. I followed 5 minutes later and saw her phone blinking on the nightstand. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but you have to understand, my world had just exploded and I needed answers. I opened her phone and went through her messages, her gallery, her social media. The guy's name was Jack. Jack Kessler. A client, apparently. A model who had done some work for a branding campaign. Except he wasn't just a client. He was in her texts, her call log, her calendar, and her bed, apparently. The affair wasn't a fling. It had been going on for months. I went to bed that night with her lying next to me, her hair damp from the shower, and I lay stiff, eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan turning in slow, even circles. I didn't sleep. I didn't even close my eyes. All I could think about was that folder, those photos, and the way she looked at me like I was just another piece of furniture in our house. She thought I didn't know, but I did. And the way I saw it, this wasn't just a betrayal. She came home at 11:40 p.m. that Thursday night. I know the exact time because I was sitting in the garage with the car off, staring at the overhead light and letting my hands tremble in my lap. I'd been out there for over an hour, deciding whether I'd confront her tonight or wait. The photos were in the glove box, the ones from her studio. Not digital. Actual printed photos, sleazy, amateur hour kind of stuff that should have never been made, let alone left lying around. But that wasn't the worst part. That came when she walked in through the garage door, humming softly like she didn't just crawl out of another man's arms. I got out of the car slowly and followed her in. She didn't notice me behind her. She had earbuds in, her phone in her back pocket, in that relaxed posture that only comes after something very satisfying. That's when it hit me. The cologne. That scent. It wasn't hers. It was unfamiliar and musky, and definitely not from our bathroom shelf. I stepped forward into the hallway and spoke, calm and cold like ice on tile. You smell like another man. She froze mid-step. I watched her entire body seize up like someone had just pulled the plug on her operating system. She turned around slowly, her face blank for half a second, then rearranged itself into a confused frown. She looked me up and down, like she was trying to calculate what I'd seen, what I knew, and how much lying she'd need to do in the next 5 minutes to salvage whatever version of our life she thought still existed. What are you talking about, Ben? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. I just had a late session at the studio. I didn't say anything right away. I let the silence stretch out. The way her eyes twitched when she tried to look away told me she was already guilty, already rehearsing a speech she probably used on someone else once, maybe Jack. Maybe another poor bastard who thought they were special until she got bored. Session ended at 9:30, I replied. I called Martin. He locked up. Said you left before he did. Now her breathing changed. Shallow. Short. She was trying to decide whether to run or fight. She chose the dumb route. Well, I went to get a drink after. I don't have to tell you every move I make, she snapped. That's true, I nodded. You don't. But most married people don't come home wearing someone else's cologne either. She rolled her eyes and turned toward the kitchen, like walking away would end the conversation. I followed her. She opened the fridge, took out a bottle of flavored water, and slammed it shut. So, what? She muttered. You smell something weird, and suddenly I'm guilty? Maybe I walked by someone. Maybe it's the guy who was before me in the Uber. I leaned on the counter across from her. Maybe it's the guy who was with you an hour ago. That was the moment everything cracked. Her bottle slipped from her hand and rolled across the floor, bumping into the base of the pantry. Her eyes flared, and then they went flat. Dead. Like someone had finally flicked the switch to the end act. You don't know what you're talking about, she said softly. I know enough. I know about Jack. I know about the photos. I know what you've been doing in that studio when you tell me you're editing alone. And now I know you're too stupid to wash off the scent before coming home. She sat down at the dining table and put her head in her hands. She didn't cry. I half expected tears. I think I wanted them. Not because it would make anything better, but because I wanted to see some kind of remorse, something that proved she was still human and not this smug shell I didn't recognize anymore. So what now? She asked. You gonna kick me out? Call him? Make some big dramatic scene? You think this is a scene? I asked. No. This is just the start. The scene starts when your parents get the envelope. When your gallery sees the private work you've been doing. When Jack's wife finds out her husband's been making himself comfortable in your studio while mine's been falling apart. She looked up. That was the first time I saw fear in her face. She doesn't know, she said quickly. Not yet, I said, but she will. You weren't careful. You left things lying around like you didn't care if I found them. But someone else did. Someone from your own staff handed me that folder, thinking it was mine. And I opened it. That's the only reason we're having this conversation. She swallowed hard. Please, don't do that to her. She's got kids. You didn't care about my home, Danny. Why should I care about his? We sat there in silence for a long time. She didn't apologize. That would have been too easy. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just sat, staring at the floor, as if trying to pretend this was a nightmare she could wake up from. You're not sorry, I said finally. You're just scared. She nodded slowly, still staring at the floor. I didn't mean for it to happen. Yeah, affairs are like slip-and falls, right? Happens out of nowhere. 1 minute you're organizing your camera equipment, next minute you're moaning under some guy while your husband's making your favorite dinner. Don't, she whispered. Just don't. Why not? You made the choices. You took the risk. Now live in it. She stood up and moved toward the hallway, like she needed to escape the room. I followed. You think I'm just going to let this go? I asked. I don't know what you're going to do, she replied, finally turning around to face me. You're unpredictable when you're angry. You've never seen me angry. That landed like a slap. She blinked hard, took a step back, and said something that surprised even me. Do what you need to do. That's when I knew she was done. She had no fight left. She had crossed the line so far back, she didn't even recognize the road anymore. I let her walk up the stairs. I didn't follow. I went to the living room, pulled out the envelope, and looked through the pictures again. I wasn't trying to punish myself. I needed to see them one more time to remind myself that this wasn't a misunderstanding, wasn't something I'd blown out of proportion. I wasn't reacting to a hunch. I was responding to proof. And now, it was time to do something about it. I waited until morning to say anything else. I wanted her to feel the weight of the silence, the space between us in the same house, breathing the same air but not touching, not talking, not even pretending. She came downstairs dressed for work, pretending she still had a normal routine to maintain, that the world hadn't just opened under her feet. She looked like someone who had rehearsed their role 1,000 times and thought they were still playing in front of an audience that didn't know the truth. I didn't greet her. I didn't even look at her. I just placed a cup of coffee in front of her, like we were roommates who shared a kitchen and nothing else. She sat, sipped it like it didn't taste like regret, and finally spoke without looking at me. Are you going to tell them? She asked, voice quiet but tight, like she already knew the answer. I already did, I replied. Your parents, your sister, your business partner. They've all got the envelope by now. Check your phone if you don't believe me. She didn't move. I could see her blinking hard, still refusing to react. She must have been scrambling internally, trying to decide whether to deny, to fight back, or to fall apart. She picked none of those. She just sat still, like a coward with no backup plan. You've ruined everything, she said finally. No, I corrected her. You ruined everything. I just made sure it doesn't stay hidden. She leaned back in her chair and looked up at the ceiling. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I slammed my hand on the table hard enough that her mug shook and some of the coffee spilled onto her hand. She winced, but didn't complain. I stood up, pacing the kitchen like I had too much anger to sit still. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to scream. I wanted to make her feel what I felt every second since I found that folder. Then tell me how it was supposed to be, I said, turning to face her. Were you going to keep pretending forever? Keep lying to my face, screwing him behind my back, then coming home and asking what I want for dinner? Was that the plan? It was never supposed to get this far, she said. He was just supposed to be a distraction. Oh, that's a nice word, I snapped. Distraction. Like a hobby. Like yoga or reading. You used another man like a treadmill, then got surprised when it caught up to you. She finally stood up, pushing the chair back with a screech across the tiles. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That it was a mistake? You already made your move. You already burned my life down. What more do you want? I want to understand why you looked me in the eye every night knowing what you were doing. I want to know how you made peace with it. How you let me plan your birthday while you were busy stripping down in your studio for him. She looked away. That was the first real reaction. Her shoulders dropped, and she reached for the sink, turning on the water even though she wasn't washing anything. Maybe it was a reflex. Maybe she just needed something to do with her hands to avoid falling apart. You weren't present anymore, she said. You were always working, always distracted, always somewhere else mentally. That's how you justify it. I stepped closer, lowering my voice but not my anger. You think because I had deadlines, you had a free pass to humiliate me? I didn't stop caring. I didn't stop being your husband. But you stopped being my wife long before I stopped being present. Her eyes were glassy now, but she wasn't crying. I think she knew I wouldn't fall for that even if she did. She was trying to hold on to something, some kind of dignity or self-control, but it was slipping. Then what now? She asked. You want me to move out? You want a divorce? I already talked to a lawyer, I told her. Papers will be served this week. And I want the studio. You can find a new place to play photographer. That building was half mine, and I want it all. She turned sharply, eyes wide. You can't take that away from me. I can. And I will. You don't get to keep your playground after tearing down the house you built it on. She sat back down slowly, her voice cracking. You said you loved me. I did, I replied. But I stopped the moment I saw you kiss him in that photo. That woman in those pictures, I don't know her. And I wouldn't waste love on a stranger. We sat there for a few minutes, the silence broken only by the ticking wall clock above the fridge. She eventually stood up, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door without saying goodbye. I watched her leave, feeling nothing. Not pain, not sadness, just cold clarity. I wasn't going to fix anything. I wasn't going to forgive anything. I was going to burn every last bridge she tried to cross back over. I didn't sleep the night after she left. I just sat in the office, staring at the folders laid out on the table, thinking about every single moment I missed. Every time she told me she was working late or needed space or was just tired. The pieces all made sense now, and I didn't want to talk to anyone, didn't want comfort or advice. I wanted results. I wanted her to feel what it was like to have everything steady and secure, and then feel it ripped away without warning. She had her turn with her fantasy. Now it was my turn to return the favor, and I wasn't going to rush it. I was going to do it right. The studio she ran was only in her name legally, but she didn't realize that the lease was in mine. When we first opened the place, she didn't want the hassle of signing papers, so I did it all. She decorated, she ran it, and I paid for it. Every bill, every upgrade, every camera, every appointment management system, even espresso machine in the back was bought with my card. She thought because she took the pictures and smiled at clients that she owned it. She didn't own anything. That was my space. So I made a call to the landlord and told him the lease was being terminated in 30 days. I scheduled a contractor to strip the signage off the front and clear the space back to neutral. I didn't even warn her. I wanted her to show up to her job one morning and see her name peeled off the window. I also changed the passwords on the studio website, the business accounts, the customer database. She texted me the next day, pretending to be polite. Hey, can you send me the login for the scheduler? I think it logged me out. I waited 4 hours before I replied. No need. Your business is closed. She called right after. I watched the phone ring. I didn't pick up. She tried again. Then again. Then she messaged. What the hell are you talking about? You can't just shut it down. I replied instantly. I can. I did. Try reading the lease sometime. 10 minutes later, she was at the house, banging on the front door. I opened it and didn't let her in. I stood there, arms crossed, watching her realize for the first time that this wasn't just anger anymore. This was me building a wall between her and everything she thought she had. You're being petty, she snapped. You're destroying my career. You destroyed your career the moment you decided to mix business with your personal life, I said. You thought you could have your little side life and keep all the perks of being married. That's not how it works. You're overreacting, she said, louder this time. You're doing this because you're hurt. I smiled at that. No. I'm doing this because I finally understand you. You walk around like consequences are for other people. You do what you want and expect everyone else to clean up your mess. Not anymore. She pushed at the doorframe like she might try to come inside, but I didn't move. I just stared at her until she realized she wasn't getting through. You really think this makes you look strong, she said. You think anyone's going to respect you after this? I leaned in slightly and lowered my voice. Respect? I'm not interested in respect. I'm interested in truth. And the truth is, you had everything, and you threw it away because some guy gave you attention in a room full of lighting equipment. So no, you don't get to keep the perks. You get nothing. She stepped back, finally defeated, and turned to leave. But I wasn't done yet. Oh, and by the way, I called after her. I sent the client list to Jack's wife. She deserves to know who she's married to. She froze for a second but didn't look back. She just walked faster to her car, slammed the door, and peeled out of the driveway. Over the next few days, I tied up the rest of the loose ends. I contacted the local photography networks where she advertised and let them know the business had closed. I posted a simple public statement on the website. Studio closed permanently due to internal conflict. All existing appointments canceled. Refunds processed. I even paid the clients back myself, just so no one could say I handled this without honor. She tried to get in touch again, sent a dozen texts, left voicemails full of whining, fake apologies, even one where she started crying halfway through. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need closure. I didn't need to hear her excuses again. She made her choices, and now she could live with the consequences. I wasn't going to yell, wasn't going to beg, and I wasn't going to forgive. I was going to clean her out of my life the same way you scrub mildew off a wall. It's not about hate. It's about hygiene. She messaged me on a Sunday morning, 3 days after everything had gone public, asking if we could talk face-to-face, one last time. I didn't respond right away. I went for a walk around the block, passed by neighbors I used to wave at with her on our way to dinner, and then stopped near the corner store where she once said we should get ice cream every Friday night, but never followed through. I didn't walk for clarity or peace. I walked because I needed to burn through the pressure building in my chest at the thought of sitting across from her again. Eventually, I went home, sat down, and sent one message, "Come by at 6. That's all the time you get." When she arrived, she wasn't wearing makeup. That used to be a good thing. I used to say she looked her best when she was just herself. This time, it felt like a costume. She came in quietly, looked around like she didn't recognize the place anymore, and then sat at the edge of the couch like it might eject her if she moved too much. I didn't offer her anything to drink. I didn't ask how she was. I just stood by the counter, arms crossed, waiting. She started slow. "I've been thinking a lot about what I did, about how everything happened. I know it's too late to fix anything, but I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did to you." I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. She needed to sit in it for a while. "I don't even have a defense," she continued. "There's no excuse that would make it okay. I just got caught up in something that felt exciting, and I ignored everything else. I ignored you. I ignored what we built." "You didn't ignore it," I said. "You threw it away." She nodded slowly, staring at the floor. "I don't blame you for hating me." "I don't hate you," I replied. "I don't feel anything for you anymore." "That's worse." Her eyes watered then, and for a second I thought she'd start begging, but she didn't. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie and looked up at me. "I ruined my life," she said, "and I'm not asking you to help me fix it. I just needed to look you in the eye and say it. I thought maybe that would make things feel more real." "It's been real since the moment I saw the first picture," I said. "It's been real every time I wake up and remember you were lying to me in the same bed. It's been real every day I walk into this house and feel nothing but relief that you're not in it." She swallowed hard. "I know. I gave you everything," I said. "I didn't cheat. I didn't hide things. I didn't make you feel small. And the worst part is, I didn't even see it coming. That's what makes me angry. You didn't even have the guts to let me know we were in trouble. You just went behind my back like a coward." "I was afraid," she said. "Afraid of what it would mean to admit I wasn't happy. And instead you decided to take the lowest route possible and lie your way through it. Don't pretend this was fear. This was convenience." "I know," she said again. "And I have to live with it." "You do," I said, and I meant it. There was a long silence after that. She looked around the room like she was trying to absorb it one last time, maybe searching for a piece of what we had left, but she wouldn't find it here. I'd already pulled it all apart, memory by memory, until there was nothing left but furniture and dust. "I'm not going to fight the divorce," she said finally. "You'll get everything. I'm walking away. I deserve to walk away with nothing." "You won't get an argument from me," I said. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I nodded. "I believe that. But it doesn't change anything." She stood up slowly, looked at me for a long time, and then asked, "Is there anything you want to say before I go?" "There's nothing I could say that I haven't already felt," I replied. "This is it. You said your piece, now leave." She looked like she wanted to drag it out, maybe stall for a hug or a touch or something that would let her pretend we were still us for just a second longer. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I stood there until she finally stepped past me and opened the door. "I hope one day you can forget what I did," she said, not turning around. "I won't," I said flatly, "and that's the point." She walked out, closed the door behind her, and I stood in the middle of that quiet house finally feeling what I hadn't let myself feel before. Not rage, not sadness, just the simple understanding that it was over, and no amount of talking would bring any of it back. 2 weeks after she walked out of the house for the last time, the papers came back signed and notarized. It didn't feel like some dramatic ending or anything worth celebrating. It just felt like paperwork confirming what I had already accepted, that the person I married wasn't the one I ended up with, and that keeping her around would have been like living with a stranger who knew my passwords but not my character. I didn't tell anyone right away. I didn't post anything or message friends. I just placed the documents in the drawer where I keep my passport and the title to my car, and that was that. I had gone through the storm, and now I was standing outside. Not better, not stronger, just done. There were moments where the silence in the house felt heavier than it used to. Not because I missed her, but because I had to get used to the absence of noise that used to irritate me more than I realized. Her loud phone calls, the sound of her pacing while she rehearsed fake enthusiasm for her clients, the clattering of dishes she never fully cleaned. Now, all that was gone, and I had the quiet I didn't know I needed. It wasn't peace. It was space. And for once, it was mine. I had a long call with her mother the week after, not because I wanted to, but because she asked to hear from me directly. She said she'd already spoken to her daughter and wanted the truth from my side. I didn't give her the messy details, But I didn't sugarcoat it either. I told her what happened, told her I didn't want anything to do with her daughter moving forward, and that I appreciated the years we shared as family, but I was cutting off everything connected to that woman. She didn't try to argue. She just said, "I understand," and we ended the call. My coworkers knew something was off, mostly because I had taken a few unplanned days off and started showing up earlier than usual after that. One of them asked if everything was all right, and I told him the truth, quick and plain. My wife cheated, it's over now, and I don't want to talk about it. He didn't push. Nobody did after that. What I didn't expect was how clear everything started becoming after the dust settled. I used to think moving on meant trying to find something new right away, jumping into some other relationship to prove you weren't broken. But I didn't feel that way. I didn't want to swipe on dating apps or go out for drinks or let people introduce me to someone they thought would be a good match. I just wanted to be alone, not because I was hurting, but because I was finally honest with myself about what I needed. I didn't need a partner. I needed to breathe without wondering if someone was lying to my face every time they said they loved me. One afternoon, I drove past the studio building, now stripped of any signage, the windows covered, the inside empty. For a second, I parked across the street and stared at it. I remembered standing next to her in that space, watching her light up when the contractor installed the backdrop wall, when she took her first official client photo, when she decorated the front desk with those cheap little candles she insisted made the place feel warm. None of that mattered now. All I could think about was how easy it had been for her to turn that place into a hidden hotel for her little secret life. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't need to go back in. I just sat there, looked for a minute, and then drove off. That building wasn't mine anymore either. Not in my mind. I never reached out to Jack. He never reached out to me. From what I heard through someone at a mutual client's office, his marriage didn't survive either. His wife left him, took the kids, and moved out of state. I didn't smile at that. I didn't care enough to. That part of my life, the part where I worried about him, about what he took from me, was over. He was nothing. She was nothing. And I wasn't interested in staying connected to people who treated loyalty like a temporary setting. The best part of moving on wasn't waking up alone or having more free time. It was no longer second-guessing myself every time I heard a weird excuse, or got a strange look, or watched someone glance at their phone a little too quickly. That constant guessing, that paranoia, those things leave scars you don't notice until they stop. And now that they were gone, I knew what calm actually felt like. I'm not going to say I'm better off or that I'm grateful it happened. That would be fake. I didn't need this to grow. I didn't need betrayal to become wiser, and I didn't need pain to remind me what I'm worth. I already knew. I just forgot it for a while because I put someone else ahead of my own judgment. That won't happen again. So now, I work, I take care of myself, I spend time with people who actually value honesty, and I leave her exactly where she belongs, in the rear view. This is how it ends. Not with forgiveness, not with some big emotional turnaround. Just with the quiet decision to never allow someone like that into my life again. She got one chapter. That's all she'll ever get.